Hi, this is Red for Real, and today we're going to be taking a look at professional sports in the United States and how the economic shutdown has affected them, and if there's potentially a way or a middle ground that they could start their seasons back up or continue their seasons without as much exposure to people spreading the virus. So, so far, the NBA has been affected by this and the MLB has been affected by this, but worst case scenario, and hopefully this doesn't happen, the NFL could have to delay the start of their season if this shutdown continues. So we're just going to take a quick look at the three major sports in the United States and break down how much money they get from ticket sales as opposed to other sources of revenue, and if it would be worth them to open up games and not have fans in the stadium. I think it would be weird to have a game where you don't have the stadium background noise in it, but I think it would be a whole lot better than watching reruns. I don't think anyone wants to watch any more games where they know how they're going to end. That's just me. Let me know down below. I am new to YouTube, so any type of comments to help me make these videos more entertaining or more informative would be greatly appreciated. That being said, we'll go ahead and get started. The first place I went to was Investopedia. This article is from 2019 and it looks at the 2018 revenue. It does a pretty good job at breaking down where the revenue comes from. The NFL is not as transparent as the other professional leagues, but we get a rough idea that about $15 billion comes from TV contracts to air the game. They get another $1.3 billion roughly from corporate sponsorships. And then they get, on average, $7 million in ticket sales per game per team. One thing to keep in mind is that only 8% of those ticket sales actually go to profit. The rest of it is to cover the cost of the game, including paying athletes, coaches, entertainers, administrators, and other expenses related to the stadium. So the one thing that this did not mention was the merchandise sales. So to get that number, I had to get a little creative. This is a article from PR Newswire that just kind of breaks down what percentage of merchandise sales goes to what league. And the best I could come up with was about half of the merchandise sales in North America, mainly the United States, are split between the NFL and MLB. It didn't give me an exact percentage, but I'm just going to assume that those are equally split. And then to come up with a number for that, we went to the total sales of sports merchandise in North America and got roughly $14 billion, $14.5 billion. So with those numbers, we came up with $15 billion in TV revenue, $1.3 billion from corporate sponsors, $3.5 billion from merchandise, as compared to a total estimated ticket sales of $3.6 billion. That's roughly 15% of their total revenue comes from ticket sales. So if they were to open NFL games, if this economic shutdown continued through the start of the NFL season, they could potentially open those up without fans in the stadium and still retain about 85% of their revenue stream. The other professional sports were a little bit easier. They're a little more transparent. So in baseball, you get 30% of their revenue comes from ticket sales. That makes sense because there's so many more games in baseball that a lot more people go to the games than watch them at home. So you're still looking at about 70% of their revenue comes from non-ticket sale sources, which means that if they were playing the season normally and playing in stadiums without fans, that they would still be roughly making about 70% of what they were making the year before. The NBA falls somewhere in the middle. It gets about 22% from ticket sales. That makes sense. They have less games. They have more TV attendance. But again, if they, instead of shutting down the season, if they continue to play the games and just played them in stadiums without fans going to the games, I think that would have hurt their bottom line a lot less than what they did. But again, when they did shut down, there was a lot less known. Now we know a little bit more. It may be something for them to consider to reopen so that they can at least capture that roughly 78% of their revenue. Now, this is not unheard of that playing a game without fans in the stadium. In 2015, there was a White Sox-Orioles game in Baltimore while there was riots going on in Baltimore. So basically, they did the first ever crowdless game in MLB's history. I watched a little bit of it. It was kind of awkward, just the silence. But it was better than watching a game that I knew the outcome because it was a rerun. So that's all I got to say about that. I really think it would be better if, just to get back to some sort of normalcy, if we started being able to watch live sports again, even if there was no fans in there. Please let me know what you think down below, and have a good day. Thank you.